Hey, is your diet a mental disorder? So we'll be getting into some dietary metaphysics on this one, right? Basically, this is a super interesting thing that I found this week. I want to just go straight to an article that we will use as the basis for this. We don't have the article yet. We got a black screen. That's interesting. Okay, now we got it. Hey, a new eating disorder, orthorexia, is on the rise according to therapists. So they're calling it orthorexia. We'll talk about what that means. This is by Sadie Fox, a PhD in Women's Health magazine, right? Article came out this week. I kind of want to skip the introduction that they got going on and just go straight to not meeting the experts. We'll go past meeting the experts. Let's go to what is orthorexia, right? Because that's how we're going to start with this. Put simply, orthorexia is when eating healthy goes from a goal to an obsession, skewing what healthy even means in the process. With orthorexia, a person becomes so focused on avoiding foods they think are harmful that they end up depriving their body of the nutrition it needs. It's important to know that the foods people avoid aren't always based on good, accurate information. People with orthorexia might make choices based on different approaches they see on social media, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's backed by science, says Fox. So I think you know where I'm going here. Yes, we're going to talk about alternative health and what people think is right and what actually is right, what's not right, and where's the scam in all this, right? Anyway, this article, this last paragraph I want to give to you before I jump in. In reality, if you ask a nutritionist, cutting out entire groups of foods, no matter what they are, can result in a pretty unhealthy diet. Because their diets can become so restrictive, people who are orthorexic might lack key nutrients, not get sufficient calories for normal bodily functions, and have digestive issues like constipation, says Emily Van Eck, a nutritionist who works with patients with eating disorders. So, social media versus science, right? Does social media misinform the hell out of people? And does it do that? Yes. Is it easy actually to make yourself put yourself in a very dangerous state thanks to some of this stuff that's out there today? Yeah, you can really hurt yourself with some of the health advice and dietary advice that's out there. You have all of these fad diets with, they've been around for a long time, fad diets. It's not anything new. The difference is today you'll have a community supporting you, that you can go down that path, and you're going to have people that are doing exactly that, and there really is no guardrail to keep you from doing something that's pretty crazy, And with social media, it is more in common to have something very extreme be very normalized. So we have we have blurred lines between what's normal to do, what's not normal to do, right? Staying away from all of the vegetables because of lectins, right? Like the whole paleo stuff, eating only raw foods, right? Raw food only. Right, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm saying they're pretty drastic practices, okay? They're pretty extreme practices. It's not very vanilla, right? So it's very common today to eliminate an entire food group from what you do. But zooming out just a bit, the alternative health and conspiracy community, they've always been a target for scams. They've always been a target for some crazy idea to come out, and they'll target the alternative community and say, hey, this is being held down by mainstream science and mainstream nutrition. They don't want you to know this. What you have to do is cut this and this out. And that's what they do. Anyone can come around into our community and make claims and sell products, because we're the anarchist community, right? We're the libertarian community. We're the Wild West when it comes to, we're all for making decisions for ourselves. So people can come into our community and they don't have to measure up to mainstream standards and scientific scrutiny. They could just sell some shit. Anyone can come around and say, hey, well, of course, I have to remain unproven and untested and unstudied because of the system. So they just blame the system, right? And it's too easy to put a generality out there, like big pharma is corrupt. They just want to keep selling their medicine. And what they don't want you to know is this one simple ingredient that they try to suppress, and the person just happens to be selling a product with that ingredient, right? So I think you know that you get this scam thing. I start with that because I think it's very important to be self-aware before we even criticize this article and go into what I think they're saying. It's important to be self-aware, and as someone who criticizes mainstream science, right? I'm the guy who wants to completely break government's monopoly on health and medicine. I want everybody to have a baseline knowledge, just like it's normal to have a baseline knowledge of CPR. I think everyone should be a doctor. Everybody should be a nutritionist. Everybody should be a philosopher. There's nothing stopping us from being good at these things, good enough that we don't have to completely be in the dark. Like, it's normal to have jumper cables in your car and know how to fix a tire, but why shouldn't we have the same standards for nutrition? Is it paranoid that a person is thinking about what happens if their engine shuts off and how to change a tire? Or is this something very normal that they're thinking of? But I'm getting ahead of myself just a bit. We have to be self-aware. We have to be mindful of not grasping at every straw to attack the medical industry, the nutrition industry, and the practice of psychology. So I really, really try to guard against this reaction. Because the immediate reaction when I see an article like this is, oh, look at what they're trying to push on people. They're trying to push this orthorexia thing on people, which isn't even real. Okay, so full disclosure, that's my first reaction. But I really, really try to guard against the knee-jerk reaction, which is this. Article comes out, right? Pops up, study comes out, the news does a story on it. So the thought process for somebody like me is, okay, what is the ruling class trying to push with this? What is the tyranny here, you know? And even if that is true, it's an absolute must to still go through the process. Consider the author of the article, their motive for writing it, then the study. Actually look into the scientific merit of it and analyze it fairly. You know, we don't do this. We should be doing this, but a lot of us do this. So us common folk, we actually have to do much more research than the mainstream scientists, because not only do we have to go through the material just like they do, we have to consider the corruption that we know is out there, conspiracy, which we know is out there, long-term agendas, which are obviously out there. And actually every scientist does have to do this too. There's a bias analysis at the end of every study, right? Well, the independent researcher has to do the same thing. Go through the material, analyze the bias, but go way beyond the scope of traditional bias analysis, because we consider the contracts, the handshakes behind closed doors, you know, with the malicious and dark aspects of what's going on in the top echelons of society. That's a side point, to be vigilant against that and to still have that integrity and the principles and the scientific and journalistic practices to do the same things they do and then go a step further. That's a side point, but I think it's an important one. That independent researchers, they have to be like a Swiss Army knife. You got to be a jack of all trades. You have to have enough intelligence, knowledge, and scientific integrity to not get laughed out of the building in any kind of conversations about this, you know. And on top of that, they have to overlay their big picture systems analysis on top of that, and then like a detective connect the dots and see if there's not a scam going behind the surface, right? Or there's not an agenda behind the surface. And then at the same time, an independent researcher, they have to have rhetorical and publishing ability. They got to not only be able to tell you, they have to be able to present it to you, right? They're the media, they're the spokesman. Because there are no magazines publishing our work, there are no news anchors reporting our work. We have to do it. So I make that point to consider the respect level that we have for independent research. And I don't mean just me, I'm not talking about just me, but everyone who is doing this, not just on the levels of like a podcaster that's being the aggregator of news, but the actual alternative researchers, the whistleblowers, the doctors and nutritionists and psychologists who are pushing this information, and they're really pushing information that's against the flow of the current of their profession, which is very difficult to do. So who else, if not them, is going to pick up a topic like orthorexia? Who else is going to catch an article like this before it is embedded in the people's understanding? Because the reality is, this idea that people become obsessed with eating healthy and they go off the rails, you have heard of this before. Maybe not the name, maybe it's the first time you're going to get the official definition, but this idea has been put out there before by someone. And mainstream psychology and science is currently, and has been, building their narrative and building their worldview surrounding this topic. And that's why it's very important to stay in touch, stay on top of things, of what's going on in the day-to-day. Maybe not on the front page headline, because I didn't find this article on the front page headline. It was on the fifth or sixth scroll, right? So to speak, the fifth and sixth pages of the newspaper. So it's important because by the time the lawyers, the doctors, the insurance agents, the clerks, the office employees, by the time they've developed their understanding of a new issue or new phenomenon, you're already dealing with embedded beliefs. If you're trying to change it, you're already trying to change embedded behaviors, where it's basically too late. Obviously, we can change behaviors. Yes, we are out to change embedded beliefs, like the government monopoly, not only on the law, but on food and health. And we can be partially successful in doing that. We'll never be fully successful at doing that until we can be consistently ahead of shaping the beliefs. Shaping the beliefs today on issues that are going to present themselves in months and years to come in the future. I think this is an example of this, So, is social media driving new food crazes? Sure, they are, right? But maybe mainstream science has never had competition. I want people to think about this. A dissenting platform. There's never really been a counter argument to the scientific experts unless it's based in religion. So to this day, you could have religious exemptions to vaccines. Religion has been the counter argument to science, which is not really a counter argument because it's not on the same playing field. It's just playing a different game. It's not actually getting into the nitty-gritty of the science and arguing with mainstream established science. It's just saying, hey, we're not even going to play your game. We have our principles and our beliefs, and this is what we're going with. The argument with science has always been in the house, right? The scientific experts and the doctors, the scientists, they discuss with each other. But once there's a scientific consensus, that's the consensus. And then embedded beliefs don't really change very easily at all until you have new scientific knowledge come out. But it's not that easy for new scientific knowledge to come out and present a new thesis, because for new scientific knowledge to come out, for new information to come out, it has to be peer reviewed. So it has to battle against that own internal in-house scientific consensus. I think people get that. I'm not breaking the ice on anything new, but it's just something to think about, how things work. So maybe the new social media dietary fads and crazes, maybe they deserve some respect as being a counter, a dissenting voice to mainstream science and mainstream dietary practices. So there are definitely efforts out there, maybe, to make these efforts seem like it's the work of neurotics, but it really isn't, right? So let me just jump back to this article over here, and I want to read this to you, picking up where we left off. It's not officially recognized in the DSM-5, the Handbook for Diagnosing Mental Disorders. So orthorexia is not officially a mental disorder as of today, but orthorexia is an eating disorder that has risen significantly over the past few years, according to experts who treat it, without formal diagnostic criteria. It's challenging to determine exactly how many people in the US struggle with orthorexia. So, as is usually the case with psychiatry, nothing is formal here, and it is very fluid. And if you go into the DSM-5 and the things that have been on it in the past and are on it today and have been taken off, it's not really so cut and dry as you would expect. So orthorexia, is it even real? Is it something that is formally defined? No, it has not been formally defined in the DSM-5 anyway. That's not to say that the DSM-5 is the the absolute, or the absolute channel of truth for what is a disorder and what isn't, right? That's a whole other issue. Well, this article, it's going to go into the psychiatry of it, but I want to go into something completely different. And just this week I had someone send me a great documentary on the topic of the history of mental illness and the history of psychiatry as being a tool of authority to suppress dissent. So psychiatry as a practice has been a tool of control to say that people are crazy when they are really just speaking out against the government and a lot of society. And kind of on that topic and what I was saying before, if you want to be an independent researcher, you have to have independent research assistants. You have to have your assistants. So thank you for sending that to me. And I'll show you exactly what it was. Really, we're going to go outside of this article, right? The article is going to go into the potential psychiatry of it, and I don't want to do that. I want to show you this. If I can get you there. Oh, you're already seeing it. Cool. Descent into Madness by James Corbett. So this is all about the history of getting a very big lag. I don't know why this stuff happens with technology, where I got the new mic, I got the new audio interface, and it was all working fine last week, and now I just get huge lag. I'm wondering what's going on. So I'm definitely not going to play the video for you. It's hard enough to scroll. But even the transcript, this is by James Corbett, and he even has the whole transcript with all of the sources that you can just watch in an hour-long video, which is a great video. But, they got the interviews here, so this is incredibly well-researched and wonderful work, okay? It's absolutely great. And I'm not going to go too deep into that to give you all of the backup information of how has authority in the past, how have the kings and the emperors used their monopoly on health, right, on psychiatry, to lock people up who are, again, speaking out against immoral practices. That history is actually extensive. What I do want to do is quote the author of the Gulag Archipelago. I've lost it here, so I'm going to just do a quick find and look up the actual quote, and I do want to find it. Okay, so, here it is. Cool. It was in front of me the whole time. In the words of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the man who wrote the Gulag Archipelago. So Solzhenitsyn was a Soviet dissenter who was imprisoned, and he was publicly practicing in the mid and late stages of the Soviet Union. And the Gulag Archipelago really brought this idea to the world of what was actually going on there. So quoting him now here, the incarceration of free-thinking, healthy people in madhouses is spiritual murder. It is a variation of the gas chamber, even more cruel. The torture of the people being killed is more malicious and more prolonged. And like the gas chambers, these crimes will never be forgotten, and those involved in them will be condemned for all time during their life and after their death. So, yeah, he wrote about all this, and I'm kind of just going to leave it there because I want to move on with Orthorexia. If you are interested, I strongly encourage you to go into Descent to Madness on his website, CorbettReport.com. You see it right here. You could find it. Yeah. It's great. We're going to leave the article as I said, and we're going to go into the actual science because that's what I want to see. I want to see what the scientists are saying. So I do like to start with articles and the mainstream news for my stories, but then quickly go outside of it, right? I want to see what the scientists are talking about. So this is, of course, on the National Library of Medicine, right? NIH. This is an official website. This is the PubMed Central. We're looking at the clinical basis of orthorexia nervosa, emerging perspectives. Orthorexia nervosa describes a pathological obsession with proper nutrition that is characterized by a restrictive diet, ritualized patterns of eating, and rigid avoidance of foods believed to be unhealthy or impure. Although prompted by a desire to achieve optimum health, orthorexia may lead to nutritional deficiencies, medical complications, and poor quality of life. Despite its being a distinct behavioral pattern that is frequently observed by clinicians, orthorexia has received very little empirical attention and is not yet formally recognized as a psychiatric disorder. And this is the interesting thing about it, because we all know anorexia is unhealthy. We all know it's destructive. We know that bulimia is unhealthy. We get these practices, but this is an eating disorder that is literally about orderly eating. It's about healthy eating. So people who are orthorexic, they're just obsessed with being healthy. So it's not really abnormal behavior, or if it is, it's behavior done with the spirit, with the desire to actually be healthy and balanced. So I hope you're getting what really fascinates me about this is that if you're out for the best, if you're out for the healthy, if you're out for the truth, this is the new disorder that is describing you. It's just starting with food, right? You could think about a person like me who cares very much about freedom and the principles of freedom, and doing away with the practices of control and authority to have freedom in the world. You could say that I'm being obsessive about freedom, that I'm being obsessive about rights, that I want rights for everyone, and I don't want a system of enforcers to enforce those rights. I want everybody to enforce their own rights, right? So does that make me have a pathological obsession with proper principles? Do I have a restrictive moral code? Rigid avoidance of immoral behaviors, right? So this is the slippery slope thing that I want to point out here. So they talk about, OCD. You can have some overlap between OCD, of course, even anxiety. Of course, you will. Orthorexia nervosa, literally meaning proper appetite. Ortho means right or proper. So it literally means proper appetite or proper eating. It is a pathological fixation with healthy food that has aptly been described as a disease disguised as a virtue. Although not yet officially recognized as a psychiatric diagnosis, orthorexia is often associated with significant impairment as what starts as an attempt to attain optimum health through attention to diet, but it may lead to malnourishment, loss of relationships, and poor quality of life, according to them, right? Of course, this could be the case, but also what I'm bringing attention to is they're trying to pathologize a normal behavior. It is normal to care about what you're eating. It is normal to care about things that could potentially hurt you in an environment where potentially hurtful things happen all the time, right? So when they go into symptoms of orthorexia, I find this very interesting what they list, because this even goes beyond what the article is saying. And often you will find this. Often you will have to go outside of even what the mainstream gets to get what the specialists are going to get, right? So you're getting the front page stuff, then you're getting the back page stuff where some of the influencing the general public goes on, and then you get the inside baseball that's not even in the newspaper. That is the fuel of the engine that then makes its way. You see, the result on the newspapers. So symptoms. In 1997, it was coined by Bretman and Knight. The term orthorexia nervosa describes individuals with an obsession for proper nutrition who pursue this obsession through a restrictive diet, a focus on food preparation, and ritualized patterns of eating. So, this stuff that they're talking about in 1997, if you're seeing people that are spending 2 hours of their day cutting it into just cutting your meal into the same portions and weighing it and spending 5 minutes to chew before they swallow, I do think that's abnormal. And I see where the original idea for orthorexia comes from a very real thing. But as is very often the case with authority and tools used to control the population, they take a very real subset or of occurrence in society. They take a fringe idea, and then they lump people together with that fringe idea to make the general dissenters who are normal seem abnormal, right? And you see this a lot with conspiracy, right? You get the crazy person that is yelling the end is near, and then people who have a problem with the 9/11 report or the Warren Commission on the JFK assassination, they throw them in with the crazies. When they're not crazy, they're bringing into light very obvious and very important non-synchronicities, okay, contradictions. Anyway, back to the article. Orthorexic individuals are typically concerned by the quality as opposed to the quantity of food in one's diet, spending considerable time scrutinizing the source. Example, whether vegetables have been exposed to pesticides, whether dairy products come from hormone-supplemented cows. Processing, example, whether nutritional content was lost during cooking, whether micronutrients, artificial flavoring, or preservatives were added, and packaging, example, whether food may contain plastic-derived carcinogenic compounds, whether labels will provide enough information to judge the quality of specific ingredients of food then sold in the marketplace. This stuff that they're listing is healthy practice. And this is like, in other contexts, you get scrutinize the source. Don't just think about what's on the plate. Think about what's on, think about the process beforehand. For example, don't just think about the hole in the wall or the bubbles, that are coming up in the wall. Think about the moisture sources. Think about the condensation. Think about the original materials that your house was built with, right? Or whether corners were cut along the way. This is what I do in my job in construction. I have to diagnose these issues. This is normal. This is best practices of construction. But when it comes to your food, it is an abnormality. They're saying it's a pathology, that you're going to scrutinize whether the cows you're eating are given hormones that you're going to eat, whether the pesticides that are made to kill bugs, and it's said on the pesticides, hey, this is toxic, don't take this in, don't ever drink this, if you drink this, call the ambulance. And whether or not that is going to be on the food you're eating, that's supposed to be pathological for some reason, that you're obsessed thinking about that. So anything can become an obsession. Okay, I understand. Anything outside of what is the word I'm looking for? Moderation. Anything outside of moderation can be a problem and can become pathological. But the nature of the things they're talking about are just good practices. So you looking out for your health and doing the right things is starting to be viewed as a sign of mental illness. And I am very much sounding the alarm on that. And that's why I refer you first to Dissent into Madness by James Corbett. And this is just going to be another on the long list of things that are normal behaviors, they're healthy behaviors, they're the behaviors of intelligent, free people, of moral people, of good people, and that is going to be mixed in with the qualities of people who are mentally ill. And it should not be the case. So, I've actually gotten ahead of myself. Let me go away from that. And so, fixations, we know they can be unhealthy. But what if there is a real threat? Is it still paranoia if the thing that you're paranoid about is real? Then is it still a fixation? Is it still abnormal? Is it still paranoia when the cop is resting his hand on his holster when he gets a domestic violence call and he's in somebody else's house and he sees that person is ready to act? Is it paranoid of him to keep that hand on your holster? Because I would say no. I would say in that case the cop's got a family too. He knows that this is about to go bad very soon. He knows how this is going to end. So him having his hand on his gun is just proper behavior for the situation. And no one would say he's paranoid for that, although sometimes the cops look paranoid, right? You might get pulled over for a traffic violation, and you'll see this. You'll see the cop behind you, right? He's not next to you in the window, and he's going to have his hand out of view, and he's ready to go because he doesn't know who you are. He may look paranoid. He's not paranoid. He's seen what happens at traffic stops where a person will attack them. And people do attack when they're in a situation where they could be taken out of their car and sent to jail. That's just reality. So things that look like they're paranoid or obsessive, maybe they're not very paranoid and obsessive. Maybe the environment, the situation that they are being used in are actually the appropriate reaction and behavior tailored to the situation. Maybe the situation is abnormal, right? So I wanted to address this, what I'm seeing between media, science, and psychology, as just pseudo-medical gaslighting. There's a lot of gaslighting I'm seeing here on this topic. I'm not the pathological one for looking at what's in the grocery aisle and saying this ain't right. I'm not the pathological one. Most of our dietary habits are straight up killing us. It doesn't matter how much soda and alcohol you put in the aisles. It doesn't matter if you put them on sale, or it doesn't matter if Patrick Mahomes advertises it on the next commercial. There's nothing normal about most of the things that we're doing as far as our food. And I have to say this, there's nothing normal about eating meat in general on a mass level. It's just not. That is an aberrant behavior. That's a pathological behavior. In the long term, it is. And just because it's a standard in society, okay, just because I've engaged in it and continue to, does not mean that it's a healthy thing to do, okay? We should be going away from this. And if you're not going to stop harmful practices immediately, you should at least reduce them. When it comes to food, we're really between two gun barrels in life. We're like this. Our bodies are craving nutrients that are becoming harder and harder to absorb. They're becoming harder and harder to find. So whatever choice you make as far as your food, it's a bad choice. Not because you're making the wrong choice, but because you're getting two options where you have bad practices affecting each one. We have really bad practices affecting our vegetables and our processing of natural foods, and we got really bad practices when it comes to animal products. Really bad practices just going outside of the moral issue. The way I see it, just like there's inflation with our money, there's inflation with health and nutrients and minerals. That's the way I see it. I think we're burning through more resources. We're burning through life force itself to keep up with a fast-paced yet very unfulfilling environment. So food is not just what you eat. It's about what environment you eat the food in. It's about what you do, what your lifestyle is like. It's about your thought patterns, your emotions. All this stuff affects cravings, and it's really not just it's everything leading up to the moment that you actually eat the food that you put on your plate. So I just have to say, it's really upside down to have a world full of slaughterhouses and $1 billion government subsidized industry just to feed the animals that we kill for food. It's totally backwards. We have to break our backs working all day to pay the government to breed the animals for a lifetime of servitude to then feed us the corpse. So, I'm the last person to tell you what to do and to be high and mighty about what you eat. But can we just acknowledge that we are really like this in the decisions that we get to make as far as our food? And it is not pathological or abnormal to be almost obsessive as far as pointing out the toxic practices and what is being done to our food and water. This is like one of the most apparent cut and dry things, like things that there is no argument about, is like how much is the child abuse and the way that all of the organs of government and law enforcement have not done their job to bring it to justice. the corruption, the stuff going on with children. Everybody knows that the stuff that that people do to children. I'm not just blaming authority, but the child abuse issue. Super cut and dry. It's like that is going to be my first go-to thing, or one of the top things, if I'm arguing with a statist about the state of the world, right? Or trying to defend my worldview as an anarchist and as a natural law, free speech, individual rights absolutist. I'm going to go to that, the violence against children, that's not acceptable, and it's the current way we do things is not solving that. And I'm going to go to food and water, and I'm going to say, hey, the government is downright poisoning the food and water. End of story, end of discussion. I don't want to fucking talk about little bullshit. It's provable. James Corbett has a whole documentary about just the psychiatry aspect of this and what is done to dissenters. So, but I'm the crazy one for pointing up to a gray sky that was blue 2 hours ago and pointing out the spray. So, anyway, we are way past mainstream science now, right? I tried my best to present it in an objective and kind of neutral way, even though it's not very professional of me to wear my my Sting, my Jamaican dance hall music shirt with Ninja Man here, but I'm me at the end of the day. I'm not James Corbett, so that's to each their own. But we are way past mainstream science now. We are way past scientific debates. We've kind of gone into a lot of the metaphysical and psychological, right? Anyway, today is the winter solstice. It is December 21st, the shortest day of the year. This is the day of finality and new cycles, right? What Christmas and New Year's is this date, this winter solstice concept. So let me go into more of this metaphysics and philosophy to end the show, right? Normalizing pathology. Very dangerous to do, where you take pathological practices, you take immoral practices, or you take straight up self-destructive practices and you try to make them normal. And this is what has been done with our food. And not just our food, but I think with drugs in general, like with alcohol, that it's just normal. Or how about, this is really the main one. For a man, a typical man in America, it is so normalized to work your 9 to 5, go home, drink beer, chill back, relax. Your wife takes care of most of the house, and that's your life. You're the breadwinner, and then you just relax. You just relax on the weekend, or do something fun. Just something that you do every weekend, like watch sports or go fishing, and that's it. And that's life. That's life. That is I'm not going to say it's a pathological behavior, but the fact that there's no growth, no progress, and at the end of the day, you're not really fulfilling yourself. You're not really evolving as a human. You're just kind of staying in stagnation. Normalizing that way of life, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that this is the way to live life. You can choose to live that way, just like you can choose to be a heroin addict. It's not normal. It's pathological. It's self-destructive. It's not conducive to you being what you were given the potential to become. Not even half of it. Anyway, normalizing pathology. Mark Passio said that in his shadow work seminar, and then I did my video about it, and here we are. The next week, it's like one thing is leading to another. It's very cool. Society wants to tell you that you're too selective about your standards. If you got high standards, your standards are too high about what you eat. That you're being abnormal for being rigid and a perfectionist. Well, is this something to be a perfectionist about? Is this something important? Let me say it that way, right? Is this something that we can just kind of say, that's not a big deal? Like where you leave your socks, whether you fold them neatly or they're somewhere you throw them in the closet. I would say that's not that important for you to be a perfectionist about it. But is eating important? Does it become a part of you when you take it into yourself? Does it fuse and merge to become a part of what you are? In a metaphysical sense, that's very important. What goes into a human being and gets absorbed into their body, that's important. It's only a few things that actually go into you and become a part of you. Light, sound, air, water, and solid matter that we call food. Those are the only things. So it's very important. And when I say light, it's not just the light, but it's also light. But I'm talking about even the thought, right? The things you absorb as in your interactions as a receiver of information. A sound, of course, the sound that we take in through our ears. The air, right, our sense of smell and inhaling, right, that what we breathe in is very important. It has to be very clean. If you don't breathe in clean air, you get cancer. If you don't take in the right light and sound, you can't even function, right? This is why when you have problems with the inner ear, you're out of balance, you can't even walk. Obviously you can live being blind, but you can't live without sensory information. Sensory deprivation will destroy your mind and your body. And then you get water, obviously, that you can't live more than like a couple days without. And then you have solid matter called food. Food is pretty fucking important. So when you talk about metaphysics, some view the finest energy as being the most important. Like your thoughts and your spirit itself is the most important thing, right? Because it's most pure. Light, thought itself, spirit itself being the top concern for health. And I don't necessarily disagree with that point of view. It's like a top-down world of view, is that the most pure and solid energy is going to affect everything else. If you have a corrupted outlook on life, then you're gonna it doesn't matter what you eat, right? If you have a destructive spirit, it doesn't matter what you eat. You could have the perfect dietary intake, and if you won't start from the top, then you're not going to radiate health, right? I think we all agree that there's a point to that. You can drive yourself into the grave, this top-down pyramid trickling down effect. You could do it that way. But on the other hand, and I think at least equally important way to see this is the way that the heaviest energy, the most dense, the most basic energy is the most important. Because it's literally the foundation. It's literally the foundation for what you are. You're building on top of it. It's literally for the foundations that humans are built on. It is what we actually take in, the solid matter. So how are we supposed to behave correctly in the world if we do not eat correctly? How are we supposed to have the energy to do things, right? To have the will to do things, to have the right mindset, to hold the right ideas and process emotions correctly if we're addicted to things, right? If we're taking in toxic things and getting drunk and we wake up hungover the next day. Good luck, being a good human being if you're hungover when you wake up. It's hard to work with the commitment that it takes. It's hard to think, right? And it's the same thing with food. We just don't see the effects of that so clearly, right? Because there are so many variables. This is like the bottom of the iceberg. You only see what's above the surface. But this is the foundation. This is the bulk of the iceberg. You can, of course, behave correctly and eat shit. It can be done. You can eat toxic, addictive, and unhealthy things. You can even eat dog meat or human meat, right? Like that's happened before. And it would still be possible to do some great things in the world. It's possible, but it would be just like drilling a hole through the wall when you're standing on a 10-foot ladder on one foot and you're leaning outside this way with your arm twisted and you're trying to, put some screws in. You could do it, but you're exerting great amounts of energy to do something that's essentially against nature. It's against the natural flow of things. It's not conducive to what you're trying to do. If you're standing up straight, both feet on solid ground, and you're leaning in, that's a foundation conducive to getting work done. Same thing with food. So that's why I did this show about orthorexia, even though I don't know if you could call me really the one to be preaching to anybody about food, because I have tended to eat super unhealthy. I'm eating pretty healthy now, but I'm not the guy to preach to about that. But also just objectively, hey, this is important. It's very foundational. So why neglect the foundations, and why let pseudo-medical gaslighting tell us that what we're doing, that what we're actually trying to do the right thing, is somehow abnormal? So that's all for me. Oh yeah, before I finish, I want to tell you about this whistle I got. I got a cool whistle from the ladies at in Edgewater in the north side of Chicago. I was working on a scaffold, mostly Mexican guys, and they're like, "Hey, ICE is in the neighborhood, Bovino's in the caravan." And said they've introduced themselves at first, these ladies are saying, "Hey, we're rapid responders. We got you guys. We're tracking their location. Don't worry, we got you." It's like, these are the whistles. They give everybody whistles. I, as the white guy, of course, was the last one to get the whistle, but I still got one. And I laugh and smile, but it's not really a laughing and smiling matter. I tend to do that sometimes, but the reason I bring it up is to give my respect and acknowledgement publicly to people who are taking time out of their life to not just post on social media about what they think is right, not just to share information on what they think is right, organizing as a community of people who are not trained in something like community response, and they're not trained in what is essentially subterfuge behavior. It's anti-government activity, essentially what they're engaged in. They're engaged in rebellious behavior. Not quite guerrilla warfare, but it's along those lines. They are taking the time out of their day. Their parents, their moms, most of them, and they are organizing and getting the resources and getting the skills necessary to help people that they don't even know to stand up for what they believe in is right. So not just looking out for health, what you're eating, and looking out for your best interest, but this even going beyond that, to look out for people that you don't even know, just based on the principles that you hold. So much respect and much thanks. And that's it for me. I'm going to end with a quote by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who wrote the Gulag Archipelago, what I recommend, of course, to you. But this is the quote, okay? This I also got from my independent research assistant. And I don't even know if I'll comment on this at the end. I'll just leave it as that. But this conveys the spirit of what I feel so much about just living in the world today, and why I feel so strongly about some of these things, to do a show every week, and then to be ready to sacrifice my life at the drop of a hat if I need to help someone, or if I need to stand up to someone doing immoral things in the street. It comes from this of recognizing where you're at in history and seeing that in the future it could be so much worse, and this will have been the time to act. And that wish, that is putting yourself into that future dystopic stage, to look back and say, what if I did something different that day when I had the chance? What if I changed something then before it was too late? And here it is. And how we burned in the camps later, thinking what things would have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family. Or if, during periods of mass arrests, for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door and every step of the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose, and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, and whatever else was at hand. The organs would have quickly suffered a shortage of officers to transport, and, notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt. If we didn't love freedom enough, and even more, we had no awareness of the real situation, we purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Yes. What if? No, we just didn't love freedom enough. And if we didn't love freedom enough, then we deserved everything that happened afterwards. That is the quintessence of This Week in Tyranny. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.